Joined right now by U.S. Congressman Adam Schiff, ranking Democrat in the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, you know all about this stuff, but I wonder if even you are a little baffled by a lawyer for the president, his top lawyer, saying he might commit perjury because somehow the questioning would be so brilliant that he would be forced into what he called a perjury trap. What do you make of it?
Well, you know, one level, I guess I'm only surprised with that level of candor, but wouldn't you be terrified as the president's lawyer, knowing his propensity to say things that are simply untrue, that the president might perjure himself? So I can understand counsel's concern about that. But look, he is going to have to be interviewed by special counsel. He has made a number of statements. Some of the most incriminating have come from, obviously, the president himself, such as his comments about what he had on his mind when he fired James Comey. So the interview is going to have to take place. Certainly a lot of minefields, I'm sure, for the president's lawyer. But if we're going to get to the truth here and get to the facts, he's an essential witness.
Why do they seem, maybe this is nuanced, but they seem less worried about or less intending to avoid commenting or letting the president testify to Mueller's team than they are testify to your committee? What is it with these guys? Is it they use it looks like they want to use it, you know, executive privilege to stay away from you guys, especially the Democrats in your committee, but they're willing to accept the fact that at least the lawyer is they got to go face the special counsel.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we saw this week they shut down Steve Bannon, basically said we're imposing a gag rule on Steve Bannon. We won't let him testify to anything he learned after he left the campaign or any conduct, meetings, conversations during the transition or during his time in the administration and many thereafter. Similarly, Corey Lewandowski ended up doing exactly the same thing, saying, I'm simply going to refuse to answer questions because I'm not prepared to do it today. And then the third witness that was supposed to come in tomorrow, another administration official, they canceled altogether. So they're plainly concerned about testimony before Congress. They're most concerned, frankly, about Steve Bannon. They may have good reason for that concern, or this may be just a broad effort to stifle the congressional investigations because they feel they have a home court advantage with the Republican chairman of our committee.
Well, they do. Anyway, today your committee released the testimony of Glenn Simpson, of course, the founder of Fusion GPS, who was hired to investigate Trump's connections to Russia. The transcript shows that Mr. Simpson told you that he discovered that there were an amazing number of people from the former Soviet Union who had purchased properties from Mr. Trump, and that, quote, he saw patterns of buying and selling that we thought were suggestive of money laundering. That is powerful stuff. What do you make of it?
This is a concern I've had all along, that this one area of the investigation could be potentially the most compromising of the president, and it ought to be in the exercise of due diligence investigated like the other allegations that we've faced. Now, when we began this investigation, there were allegations of secret meetings with Trump campaign people, which we now know, in fact, took place. There were allegations of what General Flynn was doing, which we now know proved to be true. And there have been persistent allegations of money laundering, which we have really not been allowed to investigate. Steve Bannon is clearly concerned about money laundering, Glenn Simpson as well. And I think it would be irresponsible for us not to look into this and either find out, okay, it's not true, it was just highly suggestive, or no, actually, it looks like there's merit to these allegations, and the president could be potentially compromised.
Well, there's three areas of exposure, it seems to me, as you outline it. There's the president may have colluded with the Russians. That's still out there. There's the president may have obstructed justice in terms of this investigation. And third, the one you just mentioned, he may have been involved with money laundering, he and his family. All three of them still hot to you in terms of investigating, all three topics.
Yes, I mean, I think we have a lot more work to do on all of these topics, and you can see some of the limitations we're operating under when Bannon won't talk about what he saw during the transition or his time in the administration, and the majority in the case of Corey Lewandowski is willing to take, I'm not prepared to answer that today, as an adequate response. So there's a lot more work we need to do. There's a lot more, for example, just about the Trump Tower meeting, people that knew what went into the Trump Tower meeting that have not been brought before our committee. The telephone records we want to obtain so we can determine whether Donald Trump Jr. spoke with Donald Trump Sr. about that meeting. But yes, money laundering of all of the allegations could be, if there were merit to it, the most compromising in the sense that the Russians would know they would have a powerful lever over the President of the United States, and we have simply not been permitted by the majority to look at that issue.
Thank you so much. U.S. Congressman Adam Schiff, ranking Democrat in the